Good evening. The school committee business session of November 12, 2024 will now come to order. This meeting is being recorded and will be made available for viewing on the Methuen Public Schools website. Secretary, would you please call the roll?
Member DiZoglio?
Here.
Member Donovan Grassi?
Here.
Member Keegan?
Here.
Member Maxwell? Member Shabilia? Member Willett?
Yeah, here.
Mayor Beauregard?
Here. We have a quorum, so we're able to proceed. We need a motion and a second to accept the agenda for November 12th as presented.
So moved. Second.
Motion from member DiZoglio. The second is from member Willett. Any discussion? There's no discussion. We'll vote. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? The ayes have it, and our agenda has been accepted. Superintendent, I'll invite you to introduce our student for tonight's flag salute.
Thank you so much. I'd like to call up Mary Ellen Lucas, the CGS Lower School Associate Principal. Also here is Ms. Katie Proetti, the Supervising Principal. And our student is Serena Silva, if she could also join them at the podium.
Little Tyke is going to take over. I need my glasses, Serena. So we want to welcome Serena Silva. She is a proud CGS fourth grader to lead tonight's flag salute. Serena, who has been part of our CGS family since kindergarten, is a dedicated and cheerful student in Miss Barbosa's class. Known for her kindness, Miss Barbosa quickly recommended Serena, within minutes of me sending an email, for this honor, sharing, "Serena is a bright and compassionate student. She works hard to achieve good grades and to be a good friend. She always has a smile and kind words for everyone." Serena comes from a close-knit family, including her mom, Maria, her dad, Andre, her sister, Natalia, her Nana and Grandpa, and her cherished dog, Sophie. Science is Serena's favorite subject, especially when she gets to make volcanoes explode and explore how lava can be both thin and thick. A hands-on scientist at heart. Outside of school, Serena enjoys spending time with her dog, talking with friends, cooking with her Nana. She's a young achiever with big dreams. She's working to master rounding in math, aims to be a pitcher in a major softball league, and hopes to explore Portugal one day. With a deep love for animals, she's already set her sights on becoming a veterinarian to help them even more. Please join me in welcoming one of CGS' finest, Serena Silva, to lead the flag salute. Do you want to hold? You got it? There you go.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Nice job. Thank you.
Well done. And at this point, I want to give a special shout out. This is crazy, but just for the record, Mrs. Proietti was my fourth grade teacher at the CGS, and I haven't seen her in many years, so it's great to see you. At this point,
And she's still 29.
At this point, Superintendent, I'll invite you to introduce our SOAR Award student.
My pleasure, thank you. I'd like to call up Desmond Sismadia, and Meredith Moore, I believe, is here tonight, and we also have Mr. Corrett with us as well.
Good evening. The Mathematics Department proudly announces Desmond Sismadia as this year's Mathematics SOAR Award recipient. The National Honor Society and senior class president, Desmond has been a consistent leader both inside and outside of the mathematics classroom. Last year, Desmond took both AP Pre-Calculus and AP Statistics, earning a score of 5 on both exams. Mrs. Urena was impressed with Desmond's independent work ethic in the AP Statistics class. She shared how Desmond taught himself the last 2 units prior to the March mock exam in order to give himself the best opportunity to score well on that practice exam. Mr. LaRock appreciated Desmond's leadership in the AP Pre-Calculus class, noting how he excelled in challenging AP questions and supported his peers in understanding the complexities of these problems. The AP Pre-Calculus class with Mr. LaRock was one of Desmond's favorite math classes. He enjoyed the ability to work collaboratively with his classmates and teacher to investigate challenging concepts and draw conclusions. This year, Desmond continues to apply his inquisitive nature in the AP Calculus BC class and continues to excel. The #1 ranked student in the senior class with a GPA of 4.722, Desmond's academic achievements stretch beyond mathematics. As a junior, Desmond was recognized as the Rotary Student of the Year, the Rensselaer Medal recipient, and most recently as an AP Scholar with distinctions. Students who receive the honor of AP Scholar with distinction have at least an average score of 3.5 on all AP exams taken, as well as a score of 3 or higher on 5 or more of these exams. Desmond has completed 8 AP exams during his sophomore and junior years, which include biology, US history, computer science A, English language, chemistry, and US government, along with the 2 previously mentioned AP math courses. He has received a qualifying score on all of these exams with an average score of 4.5. This year, Desmond is enrolled in 5 additional AP courses, including physics, psychology, English literature, Spanish language, and BC calculus. Desmond enrolls in the most rigorous classes Methuen High School has to offer, and his determination, motivation, and perseverance allow him to excel in every single course. Desmond's involvement in the school and community is as impressive as his academic success. A 2-sport athlete and captain of the cross-country and lacrosse teams, Desmond's lacrosse coach, Chris Vrana, describes him as a leader on the field who constantly turns heads with his impressive ability to just keep going. Desmond was fortunate to be coached by Bill James early on in his cross-country career. Sorry, they're sticking. And continues to tap into the potential Coach James recognized. Coach Kevin Elliott describes Desmond as a true captain who acts as an extension of the coaches, holding his teammates to high standards and encouraging them to push themselves. On top of his already busy schedule, Desmond also finds time to coach a youth lacrosse team in the spring, help run fall lacrosse clinics, referee both youth basketball and lacrosse games, lead planning for senior class activities, and support the National Honor Society community service projects and events. Juggling a full extracurricular schedule, Desmond impressively finds time to dedicate to his academic courses to ensure he is working to his potential. Desmond aspires to study biomedical engineering after graduation, hopefully at his dream school, the University of Southern California. Duke University and Vanderbilt University are also at the top of Desmond's college application list. His counselor, Mr. Hamilton, describes Desmond as the type of student that you may only see a handful of throughout your educational career. His ambition and drive have been nothing short of extraordinary. It is my hope that all of the colleges Desmond applies to see the endless amount of potential that lies within him. There is no doubt that Desmond Sismadia will reach his goals. He is an exceptional student and deserving of this Math SOAR Award recognition. We cannot wait to see where his road takes him after graduation.
I'd like to start off by thanking all my math teachers at both at Methuen High School and the Marsh Grammar School for enriching my knowledge of the subject and providing me with the tools necessary to keep advancing. I'd also like to thank my family for supporting me throughout my educational journey. In specific, I'd like to extend my gratitude to my mother and grandmother, who instilled in me a passion for mathematics at a young age. I have a distinct memory of spending time with my mother during elementary school working on copies of my older sister's advanced math packets. This taught me invaluable lessons about using critical thinking in math and the importance of persevering through difficulties. Additionally, during a similar period, I remember sitting down at the dinner table with my grandmother and her old algebra textbook while she babysat me. The problems in this book were far beyond my grade level, but with her patient and careful teaching, I was able to build an understanding of the concepts. She instilled in me a desire to challenge myself that I now apply to countless aspects of my life. I greatly appreciate being presented with this award and hope to continue my academic career with a focus on developing an understanding for increasingly more complex math topics. Thank you.
Congratulations. At this point, I'll invite the student representative to share any updates with the committee.
Student Council is working diligently towards fundraising this year, specifically with Doctors Without Borders. Our teacher last year, he has since retired, was working towards Doctors Without Borders fundraiser, but he was unable to do so because of just the lack of time. So we're working towards a fundraiser with Doctors Without Borders and then potentially a new fundraiser with Student Council. Also, we're working to increase the diversity across the school in regards to the inclusivity environment. We had the flags put up last year, and we hope to possibly do more events as well as other activities that include the large diverse student population. Additionally, my work with NERSAC and the State Student Advisory Council has extended onto our school this year. We have a meeting on the 15th here at Methuen, and we'll be discussing major topics to tackle in our work groups. For example, we have 3 themes. First one being chronic absenteeism is the overarching one, and it will be focusing through connectedness to school, school safety, and mental health. I hope to focus on mental health because of my work with MHPSAC, which is the Mental Health Parent and Student Advisory Council. So that's one of the initiatives that will be hopefully driving through the school. Thank you.
Thank you for the update. At this point, I'll invite the Student Advisory Committee to share any updates for the school committee.
I'm Teresa Busanaya. I'm a freshman at MHS. On Wednesday, November 7th, Methuen High School inducted 51 new scholars into the National Honor Society. These 51 scholars are the embodiment of scholarship, leadership, character, and service. Being a part of the National Honor Society is one of the highest honors a Methuen High School scholar can achieve, and we congratulate the 51 new inductees. The upcoming Spirit Week and Pep Rally. The Spirit Week consists of the days Superhero, Barbie and Ken, sports, and holidays. The day of the pep rally is, as always, class colors. On Wednesday, November 27th, we will be hosting our annual MHS pep rally, which will take place in the field house. Students and staff are encouraged to participate in events. This year's events include tug of war, half-court shot, potato sack race, balloon pop relay race, and the turkey toss. The Methuen Athletic Department will be hosting its fall awards nights will be Wednesday, 11/20 at 6:30 p.m. in the Arthur Nicholson III Auditorium. All athletes and coaches for all of our fall sports are expected to attend.
Hi, my name is Christina Muse, and I'm also a freshman at Methuen High. Yesterday, Monday, JRTC participated in the Veterans Day Parade. The town of Methuen honored and celebrated all of the veterans. Many people came to cheer and watch the parade. There was also a ceremony at the cemetery. This past Friday, the varsity football team beat Franklin in the first round of the MIAA tournament 35-21. This Friday, they will play at St. John's at 6 p.m. in Danvers. There was a historic win for the boys soccer. On Wednesday, November 7th, 2024, the number 33 ranked boys soccer team traveled to number 3 Weymouth, riding an unbeaten streak dating back to mid-September. After putting up a good fight on Saturday, the team lost to Xavier 2-1. But the loss does not underscore their incredible season. Key Club donated 6 boxes of books were donated by the Kiwanis Club. Key Club handed out the books and candy at the Timony's trunk or treat, and the Timony School also donated a box of books. All the books were donated and given out by the end of the night.
Great update. Go Rangers, and thank you to all of the students who participated in yesterday's Veterans Day Parade. We had an incredible turnout. At this point, we'll move on to public participation. Is there anybody in the room who wishes to speak as part? Okay, so we've had no signups, and we don't have anything submitted in writing either. So at this point, I will close public participation. Just going forward, if you can't make the meeting in person for public participation, you can send an email to Martha Sorois at masirois@methuen.k12.ma.us before 3 p.m. on the day of the school committee meeting. We're going to move on at this point to the approval of minutes. We need a motion and a second to approve the minutes for October 15th, 2024.
So moved.
Second.
Motion from Member Shabilia. The second is from Vice Chair Keegan. Any discussion?
I just have one
Member
question.
DiZoglio?
I just have one question. So how many would, for $3,500 a year, how many policies would they examine? Because it says 10, we would request to have them send us 10 at a time. So how much would 3,500?
So, simple answer?
Yeah.
All of them. But
Okay.
under our business from the committee, segment A is a policy subcommittee update, so I'll give you more then.
Okay, thank you.
Any other discussion? If not, we'll vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, and the minutes for October 15th have been accepted. We need a motion and a second now to approve the minutes from October 28th, 2024.
So moved.
Second.
Motion is from Member DiZoglio. The second is from Vice Chair Keegan. Any discussion? There's no discussion. We'll move on to the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, and the minutes for October 28th have been accepted. We now need a motion and a second to approve the minutes of the Transportation Subcommittee of May 20th, 2024.
So moved.
Second.
Motion from Member Shabilia, second from Vice Chair Keegan. Any discussion? There's no discussion. We'll vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, and those minutes have been approved. We need a motion and a second to approve the minutes of the Transportation Subcommittee of October 16, 2024.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
And is from Member Shabilia. The second is from the Vice Chair. Any discussion? No discussion, so we'll vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, and the minutes for the October 16, 2024 Subcommittee meeting for transportation have been approved. We now need a motion and a second to approve the minutes of the policy subcommittee from October 15, 2024.
So moved.
Second.
Motion is from Member DiZoglio, the second is from the Vice Chair. Any discussion? There's no discussion. We'll vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. We now need a motion and a second to approve the minutes of the Superintendent Evaluation Subcommittee from July 30th, 2024.
So moved.
Second.
Motion from Member DiZoglio, second from the Vice Chair. Any discussion? There's no discussion. We'll vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Moving on now to staff reports. Superintendent, do you have any updates for the committee at this time?
So I just want to reiterate, or if there are questions on the email that I sent to the school committee this afternoon regarding the photographs that were shared at the Unit A contract negotiations on Monday, November 4th. I want to reiterate a few things that first and foremost, we take any matters very seriously regarding school health and safety issues. That was the first time I had seen any pictures, was at our contract negotiations. And since that time, here are a few things that we have done since then. So Mr. Goslin and I have actually, we went to the Marsh Grammar School. That was where the pictures supposedly were all taken, or that's what was communicated to us at that negotiations session. Mr. Goslin and I went to the Marsh Grammar School on Thursday evening and were able to go through every single classroom in the building and monitored a few things. We were looking for visible signs of mold. We were looking for temperature. That was something that was reported to us. We were also looking for bathrooms. So we had some concerns about what was growing in bathrooms. And there were some buckets left supposedly in hallways and some issues with the fourth grade lockers. So that was what was presented to us in the negotiations. So we looked through as much as we could. We did send a rug out to be tested. They did come, I was informed that they actually came today to cut a piece of the rug. So that will take a few days to come back to us. If there are issues, we will certainly remedy those issues. We had a staff member over the weekend at the Marsh cleaning out all the fourth grade lockers and removing other things that were notable in the photographs that we could identify. And we had Mr. Stella, Mr. Goslin, and Ms. Gordon have been working on the heating and cooling situation at the Marsh. There is a change, and so we're just tracking the changes that are happening with the new cooling towers. There have been new temperature gauges. I'm not sure, what are we calling those?
It's a new management system.
New management system.
Just installed over the summer that they're still tweaking. Certain areas need more cold, more heat, et cetera, but they're still tweaking that as we go.
So that actually should be remedied this week, and it's not going to solve all of the problems because there's 2 spots at the Marsh that face the sun, and so those rooms are just naturally going to be warmer, so we're trying to make sure that when they set the heat, it's actually lower than the rest of the building. So that's the variation that's happening right now with the heating and cooling system. So Ms. Gordon did send out an email on Friday, a very comprehensive one to the whole staff, explaining that, and also explaining it might be confusing. People think we did a lot of work last year replacing the 2 cooling towers. Some of you may remember that. Everything wasn't fixed with that, right? So we have boilers that are on the capital improvement plan. We do have a management system, an energy savings system that has been going through the Marsh as well. So all those pieces, there is some change, which is what has been notable the past week or two with the temperature fluctuations in the classroom. So we're working hard to manage that. So I don't know if there are questions about that, but I felt that it was probably necessary to report on that and just reiterate what I sent you guys this afternoon.
Vice Chair, then Member Willett.
I have a question.
Yes.
Does the staff have any means in which they can report these issues to you directly as opposed to surprising you with them at negotiations? Is there any sort of thing, have you been notified of any of these issues? Like, can you explain that a little bit?
Sure. So the process is, there's a ticket system for maintenance and technology, so staff, all staff have access to both of those systems. If they have issues, again, maintenance issues, custodial issues, they put in a ticket. Those tickets are then assigned to the custodial staff in the building. I do not have direct access to those tickets. That is, would be a lot for me to receive. So it is handled through the maintenance department. Mr. Goslin is working through the dashboard as well. The other piece of this is, so that's a technical piece. But another piece is every building has a mutual concerns group that is with teachers and administrators, and they meet monthly, as do I. I have a mutual concerns with the Unit A and C that I meet monthly with for district-wide issues. It has worked for my entire tenure as superintendent at these monthly meetings to try to talk about issues that may be rising, and how do we resolve those before they get to any serious issues. So these were not issues that were brought up in mutual concerns, and certainly not in my mutual concern. So again, I did reiterate that first time I had seen those pictures and were able to address or resolve them were on Monday.
Thank you.
Member Willett?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Before I return back to the school committee in January, one of the things that I was going to advocate for was the restoration of the facilities report. And I think we've been very meticulous about that facilities report. And I know for a fact that I've had teachers report to me before I return back to the school committee, corrective items that I know for a fact were actually done very early in the year. So again, it's a two-way street. We serve as the elected school committee. So if it's a parent, a taxpayer, an employee, administrator, a teacher, anybody who is affiliated with the Methuen Public Schools, at any time, if they have any concerns about any part of the facilities, the plant, hazardous material, dangerous conditions, anything of that nature, definitely feel free to report it to the elected school committee. And I know we've been proactive of having the facilities report, and I would encourage anyone, because it is part of our minutes and part of our agenda, of having those punch list items and updates on those punch list items. And I think we've been very meticulous on those punch list items. I don't personally appreciate the gotcha moments because I've had a good rapport over the years of service of having people either anonymously or through an email, and I protected confidentiality. If it was anybody who had any concerns about any part of this infrastructure that we have and things that needed to be corrected, I know I've been proactive, and I can 100% assert that the members of the school committee, to a person, would also have that mentality. So it's, again, I go back to it's not very healthy to incorporate it as part of a separate vehicle where at any time, like, my phone is ready, I think it's working, email, text, carrier pigeon, I'm here to, and I know for a fact myself, I've had teachers before I became a school committee member, brought things to my attention, I brought it to the purview of the superintendent and her staff, and those items were corrected, and I also advocate for the restoration of the facilities report. So whatever mechanism someone wants to report something, we're available. So at the end of the day, I don't think it's productive. I don't think it's healthy. I don't think it's, to a certain extent, honest. Because if it's a gotcha moment, we spend like tens of millions of dollars every year. If there's issues, I know it's been brought to my attention, and it's kind of like, if something's not corrected and it's brought to my attention, shame on me, but I think we've corrected things. And please, I encourage people to go through those facilities reports. If there's anything erroneous that they want to correct, that they want to counteract, feel free to do that. But other than that, I don't think it's productive, and I just wanted to say that for the record. Thank you.
Member DiZoglio.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I've been proactive all weekend. I received the report, and all weekend I've been talking to Dr. Kwong about the issues that are occurring at the Marsh. I went there Friday afternoon, right, if I recall, and found out, because I saw the report for the first time and I was shocked by it. I was like, I've been a proactive to the teachers for the last 5 years because I am an educator and I understand the environments that they work in. And, you know, Member Willett said, the got you moment for me was, okay, I'll go over and be proactive about things. I think we've made headway. Like, I think we've proved to them that, hey, if it is reported to us, we are proactive. I've been talking to teachers. I've been talking to parents. I have done my own proactive moments to make sure things are being done. And I agree with Member Willett on this. It's hard to do our jobs when nobody is telling us things. And it's a two-way street. Teachers are here talking about certain things to us, but they're not talking about the conditions they're living in. And I'm not saying that all the things that are in those pictures, I don't know when they occurred. I don't know. Some I've seen update pictures on. But we need to start communicating better both ways, I think. Second thing is, going off of Member Keegan's remarks, one of the things that, when it came to the tickets, that is a huge issue, I think, to me, is because our building principals are not part of that tickets. And I think it's very hard for building principals to do their job to run their buildings if they're not getting tickets that of conditions or other things happening in those buildings. I know where I worked, they used to have a ticket that would ping the principal or principals of anything that's going on in the building. So if I put a ticket in saying, even like the air conditioning's broken in my room, every principal in the high school got that ping, and they would follow up on it. I think that's something, I know Dr. Kwong and I talked about this, and we're working on that issue right now.
We're working on what makes the most sense for the principals to have. The unresolved tickets, I think, is what we're most concerned about. So when the tickets go in and it hasn't been resolved yet, those are the tickets that we're going to sort of redirect to the principals to meet with the senior custodians every week. Yeah.
So yeah, that's
Only because they're big buildings, Member DiZoglio,
Yeah.
right? To get a ping is just, that's going to be a lot on a principal to get those. But the weekly reports, I think everybody was on the same page this morning when I met with the principals that might be a better system. But we're working on a better system. Yes, so we're responsive, I guess is what I'm saying. Yes, we're trying to be as responsive as possible. If there are things that we can do better, we're going to do those things.
Hello. So I coach at the Marsh for rec basketball, and the small gyms is heaving. Like, it's being raised almost like 1 foot. And so because of that, our practices have been moved. So I was wondering if that's the topic that were regarded, and is it being addressed?
Mr. Goslin's writing that down right now.
For sure.
Tab?
We just replaced half of that, about a quarter to a third of that gym, about 4 years ago. So for it to be doing that again,
Bubbling.
Yeah.
would be an issue. So this is the first I'm hearing of it. I will take a look at it.
For sure. Yeah, I remember when we received the new flooring. Like, it looks good. It's just that there's places where it's like only a foot above. It's pretty horrendous, and it poses a threat to players.
Thank you, Tab.
Member Shabilia?
So that, for me, supports my next comment. How do we ensure that these things are being reported properly? So I feel like a good 1 foot bump in the gym floor is something you shouldn't be learning about live on the fly in a school committee meeting. That's unacceptable. That's clearly not been missed in the building. No one just doesn't see that. I mean, the picture of the mushrooms, like, you don't not notice that and then do nothing with it. So it's either intentionally being not reported, or people don't know how, and I'm choosing to believe that it's people don't know how. I mean, I would like to see some kind of, it's a training. I know most of us in our everyday lives probably have trainings on our ticketing systems in our offices. Like, how do people submit these tickets? How are we encouraging them to do it? What is the policy that supports it? Because we shouldn't be having the gotcha moments. We shouldn't be hearing about what I assume is a frost heave, which I don't understand how it hasn't been that cold yet, in the gym floor. Like, this shouldn't be happening. So I think we need to address even further back as to when is reporting required, even before we worry about who's getting the report.
Fair. Yeah.
Any other questions or comments? We can take a second round. This is important. Member DeZoglio?
So going off of Member Shabilia's point of the process, from my understanding from the teachers that I've talked to, it's not about it being put in. Once it gets submitted, it seems like it takes a long time for a response. So to them, they get frustrated to the point where they're like, well, I keep sending tickets in and there's no follow-up. But like, when I told the teachers, when I found out that the principals weren't getting pinged on them, they were actually shocked, because they were like, they would have meetings with their principals and saying, well, these issues are not being met. And they would be like, well, this is the first time I'm hearing it. When really it was the first time they were hearing it, because they're not getting the tickets inside their emails. And that's why I want to approach this when it comes to a weekly update. If something gets done on a Monday and then they don't get it until Friday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday's passed, and then Friday afternoon they get the report, they're not going to follow up on it until the following Monday. So now it's gone a week for that first ticket, even if it's unresolved. I don't know how this process is going to be done of unresolved tickets. But if something's not done in a week, a principal's technically taking care of it, their staff members are already going to be frustrated, saying, well, why is nothing getting done? So I think that's why I would say like a daily report, and if you have upper school and lower school principals, they get their pings for their side, while lower school gets their side, and so those assistant principals can deal with their areas, as well as the head principal can meet with them at the end of the week and say, well, with these tickets, what happened? So everybody's in the same loop. That's what I'm thinking is the best course of action. That's what I think.
Member Shabilia?
It sounds like they're not submitting the tickets, though. Is that correct? So it's not that tickets are sitting in queue, which I would support. If something sits in queue for more than 7 to 10 days without a response, it irks me. I have the same problem with See-Click Fix.
I think it's both.
Okay.
I think it's both situations, that they might be sitting too long and that they're not reported. The issue is if they're sitting too long, nobody's letting anybody in the building know that. So we are trying to close the loop on all of those pieces. What I'm sharing with you is that there are outlets in the building that if there are situations that are not being, if they're just sitting and nobody's listening, there's no reason why the administrators in the building shouldn't know that through whether it's mutual concerns or an email from a staff member saying, hey, this has been sitting here for 7 days, right? Like, nobody's saying they can't do that. So that's the part that is, I just think we need to close the loop. It's frustrating on all parts. It's frustrating on all parts because I have less custodial staff as well. So it's all of it, right? All those things are coming to sort of a head right now. But we are, I am assuring you that we are working to close those loops, but the priority right now is making sure that everything is safe and healthy, which is what we're working through, which is challenging, but we are asking some questions to make sure we have the right things.
Member Willett, round two.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So someone does a ticket, or was it, files a report, and it's an electronic report.
Right.
Okay. Do you get a CC on that as a
I do not.
superintendent? Okay.
No, I do not.
Okay, and why is that the case? Because I would imagine the mayor would get on a click it, would get a CC on these.
Because I have 6 buildings with thousands of square feet and
But maybe-
1,200 employees. It would overwhelm my inbox and my day. That's why we have the custodians to receive it, maintenance staff, Ian to oversee it. For me to get those individual tickets that is a level of micromanaging that I just don't think I have the capacity for, I just don't.
So my follow-up question is, what level, like if we're going level 1 to level 5?
Yep.
Level 5 being a major bleep storm.
Yeah.
And level 1 is, there's a wet spot over by.
Yeah, so that.
You know what I'm saying?
A
You
ticket
know,
from a teacher to custodian is a ticket, right? There's something dirty, there's something messy, I'm
Okay.
seeing this, those are tickets,
So
right?
everything in the universe goes into that ticket.
Tickets.
And then we have different
If it's an
degrees.
emergency,
Yeah.
somebody's gonna skip the ticket process, and the principal's gonna call me or Ian, there are definitely certain things that are not just sitting in a ticket queue. If I've got flooding, if I've got major issues in a building, that doesn't go through a ticket system. That's a communication from the principal to us to resolve.
So, again, I'm still trying to find out how we can streamline this, that the administrators in the central office can get some type of understanding of what's going on with these schools beyond just the
I think
school
what I'm
principal.
saying to you, that's what we're working on right now. I
Okay.
really, I just want to assure you that I'm focused on the safety and health issues first. We're working on the communication and dashboards and ticket system. It's all coming into place. I think I need the principals to help me also decide what those best systems are, if they want APs to have it, if they want them. They seemed very positive this morning that a weekly meeting with unresolved tickets, because a lot's going to even get resolved before they get to that point, right? So we can start somewhere and move from there, but know that we're working through what those closed loops and most efficient way is going to be.
All right, so we'll get a follow-up at the next, meeting, so to
Sure,
speak.
we'll put it on the
this,
facilities
that-
report for
because,
December.
I mean, again, level 1 to level 5, and then, maybe in between, because it's like, again, there's a miscommunication happening. I don't want to assess blame. I think it's a combination of factors, including politics. And again, we should be notified by people as constituents as well, and that was done. And I don't know what happened, that went by the wayside. And again, I think it's because of politics, and it's a shame. But as school committee members working in conjunction with the superintendent, I think we probably have to shore up and improve the system in some fashion. That even some of these unresolved tickets are brought to our attention as part of the facilities report, or some type of mechanism has to be. And again, we had the facilities report, I wanted it, I'm happy about it, we did corrective action, we're always doing corrective action. We have capital improvement items, that's something that works with the city of Methuen. Sometimes they have to go through a bond issue on these items, or grants. But again, some of the unticketed, unresolved items, there's got to be a better network for us to be informed about this, because I'm not gonna put up with it. And I'm certainly always available at any time to get a text, email, call on these, and it was done, so something happened. And I'm hoping that we can reconnect that, to just have a basic courtesy of just letting us know, and not have this adversarial condition it's happening right now. It's not healthy. Thank you. That's the last thing.
Member Donovan?
And just for clarification, Dr. Kwong, on the website, under staff and faculty, isn't the ticket process a little click? So in terms of ease for reporting, staff goes into that category all the time. It's everything you need to know, how to access your Google account, and right at the top, if I remember correctly, it's a facilities ticket. So you click on and you fill it out like that. So maybe just a general reminder. I'm sure you folks are taking care of that, but it's easy peasy. I think you can go online, and I don't think we can do it, but the staff can do it. Yeah, I know you will.
Please.
I know you will. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Donovan. Any other questions or comments? Member DeZoglio, we've had 2 times here.
Yeah,
One quick point.
just one quick, just so the people at home understand. I did talk, the fence, if I'm correct, will be fixed next week, if I'm correct, at the marsh. If the fence for the marsh will be,
We submitted the requisition, I believe it was last week. The purchase order was finally created today after going through the approval process. So the vendor will have the PO. If they don't already have it today, they'll have it tomorrow morning. And we'll schedule that, so it'll either be this week or next week.
perfect. Also, when I went there to the marsh, I noticed that one of the slides on the small playground was loose. And some of the padding that was on the ground have come apart. That was put in for fixing, and we're just waiting on the return of that. Also, the heating, like we were saying, the heating is possibly coming in tomorrow. Is that correct, Ian, at the marsh?
Can you repeat that question?
The thing for the thermostats, the heating AC, are they coming in tomorrow or this week?
I don't know.
Yeah, this week, right? If
I do
I'm-
know the company's been there just about every day tweaking the system.
Okay.
So I don't know if there's a particular part that was missing, but
Okay,
yeah, they're constantly working on it.
perfect. So, yeah, I just wanted people at home and teachers at home that are watching, so they understand that we are quickly working on these issues that are coming in. And I was being updated, so I wanted even Member Willett to know that the communication that we're getting is constant, so, as well. So can update you too as well if you want to, Member Willett.
Thank you, Member DeZoglio. I'm a little more flexible tonight with this conversation simply because I think it's very important for us to be able to hash this out. I just want to share brief thoughts that I have as it relates to this conversation regarding what the superintendent had prepared for us earlier today, and also some context. So coming from 4.5 years of service on the city council's involvement with the schools is limited to, in essence, that moment when you are approving the city's operating budget and you take a yes or a no vote on approving the school department's budget. And there are 2 meetings typically that happen annually between the council and the school committee as it relates to just getting updates along those lines of monitoring the budget, et cetera. So for me, entering the role of acting mayor a month and a half ago, my involvement on a day-to-day basis with things that are happening within the schools is something that had been limited up until that point. And so for me, when I hear of things that are being shared by the union, the pictures that were shared with the committee, for me, it's horrifying to see information like that. But on the flip side, the report that was shared by the MEA, I'd never received a copy of that. I received it offline through Member Shabili, who shared a copy with me. Aside from that, I would not have seen this report. And so I think, as we've referenced tonight, it's important for us to have a two-way street where, at the end of the day, this committee is, in essence, the group that is able to take in those concerns and listen to what's going on in the schools, and then be able to articulate to the administration what we need to do going forward in terms of recommendations and the like. And when I hear of what's going on as it relates to the more recent things that have been brought to the administration's attention, I think it would probably be good to explore perhaps in essence a facilities task force where we have all of these requests that are coming in, being able to triage those, prioritize them, and then follow up as we go through. Okay, let's say you have an issue with mold at the marsh, or say rodent issues in the cafeteria at the Timony. Those are critical issues that need to be addressed immediately, like yesterday. And so having the ability to go through those issues, prioritize them, say, okay, we're going to take care of this first, and go from there, and then follow up with accountability, I think is really important going forward. So I think it might potentially be good to explore the prospect of that. Those are just my thoughts, a stream of consciousness, if you will, but that's what's on my mind. Does the school committee at this point have any questions about the Assistant Superintendent of Student Services report? We'll begin with Member Shabilia.
So first off, thank you. This is a big first step, and I think painting an appropriate picture for what our financial state is. I think this goes a long way in helping the community, the city council, the mayor's office, and understanding why we keep hearing that narrative that enrollment is down but costs are up. Because you look at this, and it's about $16,500 per pupil, but that is your general education student. You start talking about going to these day schools where we're having an increasing number, and I would have liked to have seen kind of a growth chart to see, what we had in maybe pre-COVID versus post-COVID, because I know that, I can only imagine COVID had a massive impact on those out-of-district placements. How that number has scaled in comparison to our general enrollment, because I think that sends a very strong message, and I think that people need to understand that. I mean, even for Mayor Beauregard and the council, I don't know what their point of knowledge is or basis of knowledge is on what these district placements cost. And I think it goes a long way in curtailing some of the, let's call it animosity in budgeting that we have experienced. Because I mean, looking at this and saying, this now, instead of being $16,527 per student, you're at $150,000 per student, and that doesn't even include busing. So it's a big hit. It does send a budget into tailspin. Yes, there are some circuit breaker reimbursements that come into play there, right? So, but the picture needs to be painted, and I think that we can do a better job of creating a little bit of transparency around this to better present the budget in our next go-around, because I can foresee us hitting, let's call them roadblocks.
Can I ask a question, Member
Sure.
Shabilia? I know in the past, and I'll look at Ms. Bozak, not in the recent past, so not in the last year or two, but previous to that, I know the school committee, and I think we've added it to some of our budget notebooks, just the list of where we have students of out of district and what those tuitions actually are. Because while we put here the 82,000 is a collaborative and the 150 private separate, that's a typical pre-K. That does not include, this was a pre-K snapshot. It does not include some of the other day programs, residential programs out of district that we support. So I'm not sure if that would be helpful. And where that goes, I'm not quite sure. Maybe in one of our budget reports, as we're leading up to the budget development, but it's also educational for the committee to actually see the cost of these schools. And I know we've said it, we say it, I've stood in front of city council many years in a row and said these things, but I think there is merit in the fact that we need to actually start seeing them on paper and what those numbers actually look like. So that's something I know that we've done in the past. We can do that again, maybe at the December meeting, we can just add that as an addendum to this packet.
I would say even more align with come budget time, when we get into that first discussion around
Yeah,
budget.
have all that outlined.
Being able to say, okay, we've got this many kids, be it Devereaux or St. Anne's or Perkins, whatever it is. This many kids, this is what we're spending or spent in the previous year. This is what we're projecting next year, because last year all these schools got bumped up by 14%.
Right, and we actually.
Who knows what it'll be this year?
We have that, actually, so we can include that now, what the projection, what we think. Not every school has to go up to that cap, but the
most
likelihood
of
that
them
they
do.
will is high. So we could add that now. We got that letter from OSD already.
Yeah, so I mean, just being able to show going into budget cycle that, we've got, let's say 100 kids out at an average cost of $175,000 a student. That is going to be a strong narrative to supplement our budget presentation.
I think the other piece of that is understanding that that is also how we sometimes determine, I know you saw that in the last budget presentation, of do we try to build a program in district versus sending the students out. There is a cost value to that, but there is a life value to that, kids on buses, things like that. And at this point, I think one of the things that is the most challenging, I keep looking over there, but the most challenging is that the private day schools, even the collaboratives, they have no requirement to grow, meaning there's no spots. So while our population is growing, as you have seen in our preschool just alone, right, that's happening in some other program areas as well. You know, the option for us to just send kids out of district is just not optimal and often not there as an option. So we have to figure out how we're going to build programs, add to programs, which is, as you all know already, is a challenge, but conversations we're having.
In my research, what I learned over the last few days is we have a higher proportionate enrollment to placement with our collaborative than our collaborative partners, the other districts in the collaborative. So I'm not sure how we ended up being the leader in that pack.
I could tell you.
Oh, okay.
I think we could share that. Yeah, we could do that too. I know for me, being on the board at Crest, part of that is I'm the only urban school of Crest that doesn't have an alternative school within their public school. So Haverhill, Lawrence, and Lowell all have alternative schools already in their public school, so the need for Crest isn't as high. So you're talking about capacity of the larger districts feeding into Crest. We're the 4 largest districts. It's Methuen, Lowell, Lawrence, and Haverhill. And so I think Lowell is right behind us even at Crest, but that's one of the biggest reasons we've been talking to Crest about some of those additional alternative programs that we would want. But that is one of the reasons.
Thank you.
You're
The other
welcome.
reason is just services and location, right? So a lot of placements are not local to Methuen. They're further away, so we're putting students on buses for longer periods of time. Makes it difficult for families as well. So we're looking to our member collaborative to provide the services that we need so that it is closer to home, easily accessible to our families, so that there can be more parent, student, family engagement there.
You're welcome.
Member Willett, the member DiZoglio.
Are we still on that same theme, or just the general report that we?
We're still on, for the Assistant Superintendent of Student Services report.
Okay, so I had something in reference to the residency. And again, I know we have 23 new cases in process, but we still have 13, I think, outstanding since July for review. Can we possibly get that closed by the next meeting? Because if we had 13 kids since July, I'm not understanding what the bottleneck is on that for residency.
So they're not all from July. There are also some from October in general. But a lot of that has to do with either things that were in process in terms of communications with families, things that they were waiting for, different documents. But I can tell you that 5 of those right now are in their final stage. So we'll be closed up within the week.
Okay, so just, for clarification, I see it right here, and I've read it. 23 new since October 1st. Okay. That small cohort is still 13 going back to July. Is that accurate?
Correct.
Okay. So please, let's get that resolved by the next meeting.
We will
'cause
do
We're talking
our-
about residency. All
We'll
right.
do our best.
All right, and the year-to-date is 15 we've removed?
Correct.
Okay, all right. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Member DiZoglio.
Actually, Member Roulette asked that same question, because I was looking at the residency report and I saw that as well. And thank you, Member Roulette, for covering all that for me. But when it comes to the out-of-district stuff, it's not funny, but I was actually watching the news yesterday and it popped up as special educator shortage in the state of Massachusetts. And I said, I don't know why this is news. It's been news for the last 2 years now, and finally it's catching up. So it's, but the thing I have concerns about and questions, like, we all want to bring these type of classes back into in-district, but we also got to staff them as well. So that's something the legislator needs to work on, because, again, if you ask special educators that I know, it's a tough job. It's a very tough job to be a special educator nowadays, but also it's very hard to take those tests as well. So, and again, I'm just thinking outside my head, because it's kind of like a general discussion where we want these programs to come back, but we don't have the people or the capacity to bring those programs back. So it sounds all great, what we want for ideas, but Dr. Kwong will tell us right now that it's really going to be hard if we bring these things back into district, is to staff them.
It is, but the out-of-district don't have space or staff either, so we have to come up with, it's not necessarily bringing programs back that aren't here, it's how do we grow what is here and not sending kids out from what we have, is really what we're focused on in the conversation, to see what we can do. But yeah, no, that's a broken record for me and most of you. The staffing in special education is definitely at a crisis level, I think, here and everywhere else.
Other questions? No, move on to a second round. One more. Second round? Member Shabila?
Real quick, the year-to-date transportation expense coming out of the homeless report, the McKinney-Vento, are we still being reimbursed by the state for any of that?
Not currently.
Are we anticipating any? So I'm under the impression, and I don't know this for a fact, so please correct me, that those displaced at the Days Inn are kind of on a rotating system. People come, people go, and we don't know what's coming in our doors the next day. Are we submitting anything back to the state? Are they still trying to carry some of the fiscal impact of this?
No.
Or are we carrying the purse strings now?
I can start. So no, any payment that we were receiving from the state for support of the emergency shelters is over. So that's already, we received that in '23 and '24 for those students. Any student that is here for October 1st is part of our enrollment at this point. We do not, I certainly have not heard in 6 months since July that there's going to be any additional funds to schools to support emergency students. It's, if they were on your, they were, right? So that's the difference, is any student who was here from the emergency shelter this October will show up for our FY26 budget. The reason that those monies came in is because all of that happened after that first October 1. So we were dealing with the current school year we were in when the emergency shelter opened after October 1. So not only did we get an influx of students that we weren't accounting for, but we actually didn't get the budget for them the following year because they came in after October 1 enrollment, which the foundation budget is based on. So that's how it's been reported to us. I don't know, Ian, if you've heard any rumblings in your, I haven't heard anything.
No rumblings at all.
Okay, thank you.
You're
It's the
welcome.
functional equivalent of an unfunded mandate.
Welcome to Massachusetts.
Member Willett?
And I know I
We have a
brought
second
this. Yep, thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I know for a fact I brought this up in January. If you look at the map that's been furnished by, I believe, the Department of Housing and Community Development, and you look at the locations where there's shelters for homeless, and other places that could theoretically, and they have motels and hotels and lodging facilities. If you look at the state of Massachusetts, it's clustered in certain communities versus others. So that is a problem that the state should handle, because that's an unfunded mandate, and it's totally unfair to districts, especially gateway communities. If we're not getting the funding, and we're having a national problem, and we're welcoming certain groups, and if you look, and I'll furnish the map to you, Department of Housing and Community Development, there's a lot of blank spaces in communities where they have nobody that they're hosting, and I know for a fact that they have hotels and motels and lodging facilities. And if you look at the neighboring community of Andover, the last time I checked, they had 5. Meanwhile, we're going, almost hitting the 100. There's a massive disparity. The governor's not listening, and I've said this since January. So if you want to play politics and with funding, and we just recently, I believe, got 44% for transportation for the circuit breaker.
Correct.
And the circuit breaker is at 75%, but that is really at the whim of the legislature.
Correct.
That could fluctuate. It's been low-balled too at times. And it should be 90%. And honestly, there should be legislation filed by the legislative delegation. The money should match with the child, because you're talking about extraordinary circumstances for this subcategory. It should never be thrusted upon the school district, and they're entitled to services. So we're going to penalize, or we're going to do a shell game of funding, and this has been going on for decades. They have almost $10 billion in a rainy day account, okay? They're not listening at the State House. And again, there's a massive disparity, and it's totally unfair. But anybody wants, I'll provide all that information from any time. Just give me a call. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Willett. Any other questions or discussion? If not, we'll move on to the report from the Director of Human Resources. Member Shabilia?
Questions for me?
Looking at this, I just want to understand, so I'm going to use the marsh because that's what I know.
Sure.
This says that there are 2 Unit A and 4 Unit C positions open. When you say that there are 4 Unit C positions open, is that not accounting for all the ones that are currently filled by contractors?
Correct. Yeah, so yes, you're correct. So what we did this time, right, we said we were going to try to make this a little smaller. So we took off anything that was filled or filled by contracted service providers, and only giving you the ones that are filled, were filled between October and November, because we wanted those, right? So those will be pulled off for December. And the vacants, the red vacants are truly vacant. I don't have a contracted service provider in, or a Methuen public school employee in those at this time. Yeah, so your next question is, how are we doing that, right?
No, because I kind of don't want to know the answer to that one.
Thinking if you were a part of it. No, it's a challenge of how we're doing it. We have a lot of people that we're paying during their prep times and things like that to cover these program assistants who are, in multiple classrooms.
Yeah, I do want to acknowledge, in talking to folks, and I had a surprise conversation at Market Basket this weekend. I know that these people are burning the candle at both ends. There are people in classrooms, yourself included, that are trying to do more than is, humanly possible in a 8-hour day. It's an unfortunate situation, and I'm hoping that we can get it rectified.
Agreed.
Soon.
Me too.
Other questions or comments? Member Keegan?
So I just have a specific question about the one-on-ones that are vacant.
Yep.
Are those being covered? Because
It's a
how
question for
are you doing that if a child needs a one-on-one? How are you not having one?
We are covering with other program staff to support the students' needs. Not ideal because it's taking away from the rest of the program, but we are supporting those students.
Thank you.
Other questions or comments? Member DiZoglio?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm just gonna say this, with the current situation that we're dealing with the schools and everything right now, a lot of these vacant spots, I know we're hoping to hire people, but I would say we would need to consider in the next upcoming months that maybe if these spots are not filled, that maybe we need to reroute money to adding custodian staff possibility and using the budget to do that, to ensure that the schools are being upkeep for this time being. We can reopen the budget and we can allocate these money But like I said, we should consider that down the road. Yeah.
Thank you. I'll be coming to you at some point to reallocate those funds to cover contracted services to pay the people that we're actually paying to fill a lot of those spots.
Okay.
So I'll be looking to move those funds, but it won't be to custodial, it'll be to cover the contracted services.
For these vacant spots?
Yeah, for the people we've hired
for the
to
other
fill
spots.
positions we couldn't fill, yes.
Okay, so in the future, like, that's what I'm saying, like, whatever these vacant spots that are being filled in the future, then that's one thing. But if there are vacant spots that we are not filling and there's no possibility down the road to fill, we should reallocate that money to something like custodian staff.
What we're saying, Member DiZoglio, is that that money, it has to be allocated to contracted service money.
Okay.
Like, we're already working through that to encumber all the funds that we need. So we're not going to pull these positions off of the budget just yet, because we need them filled. So we're still hoping that, we are hiring program assistants, it's just not going as a quick rate. But at this point, we are in deep trying to encumber and get a final number for the budget, so we know what we have for contracted services and all of our negotiations.
All right, so quick question. So the psychologist position, is there anybody that has applied for that?
Not recently, no.
Okay.
But we're already covering by contracted services for that. There's positions here that can't go uncovered. So we're using contracted service staff to cover for some of these things you see here, just not full-time. So I can't say that we have a full-time school psychologist that we're paying. It's more contracted by case. Did I say that right? Yeah.
All right, so my suggestion, if that's the case, because I'm looking at it as vacant, so is there any way we could put contractual, like, for the future? So I'm not looking at it and going, oh, well, this is an open spot, maybe we can move money, because they're being covered.
So just look at it as an open spot, but we're not going to be moving money right now. So we just are trying to look at what we actually have in our salaries for professional salaries and other salaries to determine our next steps. But I don't think at this point we're going to be moving them to custodians or secretarial staff or anything of that nature.
Okay.
Other questions or comments? If not, we'll move on to the facilities report. Any questions or
December,
comments?
right? Yeah.
Unfortunately, the facilities report will be here the first meeting in December.
Okay.
Did not do one this month. Sorry, Ken.
Moving along to the agenda, we have the
More to add
out-of-school
to it.
suspensions and other disciplinary actions report. Any questions or comments from the committee regarding that report? Member Shabilia?
Are we still feeling good about the cell phone policy?
Very.
Easiest question all day?
I'll take more like that tonight, thank you.
You're very welcome. No promises.
Other questions or comments? If not, we'll move on. Next on the agenda is old business and other pending matters. There are none. New business, we need a motion and a second to remove from the table the bullying prevention and intervention plan.
So moved.
Second.
Motion from Member Shabilia, second from the Vice Chair. Any discussion? No discussion. We'll take the vote to remove from the table. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. The item's been removed from the table. We now need a motion and a second to approve the policy relative to bullying prevention and the intervention plan.
So
This is
moved.
second and final read.
Second.
Motion from Member Shabilia. The second is from the Vice Chair. Discussion? Member Shabilia.
Oh, no, Mr.
Oh, excuse me.
Member Willett.
Member Willett.
So, I hate to beat a dead horse, but some of the items that I know for a fact I mentioned during prior meetings were not revised or updated or amended, that I have like legitimate concerns about, and I can go through it, page by page. I always, when you're looking at legal documents or you're looking at policies, you should have like uniformity, clarity, and certainty to your policies. So when the policy, and I mentioned this in the past, when you say something to the effect of within a reasonable period of time, if I gave everybody pieces of paper and told them what you perceive as a reasonable period of time, we probably get maybe 5 different answers. So in government, I don't think that's something we should be doing. So I'm not sure, there's other parts of this policy that talk about having a certain time frame for doing an investigation and reaching a conclusion and furnishing a report. And that's something, too, that I have a concern about, of it takes 15 days once a receipt of a complaint is received to go through an investigation, make a determination, and have a substantiation and have a report. And it takes 15 days. I think that's too long of a time frame. I said that at the prior meetings. I'd rather condense that down to 10 max. I don't think 3 weeks to do a bullying report, I think is I don't like that at all. In terms of the reasonable period of time, I would do is have it 5 days max, that there's a turnaround of finding out that if the targeted person, there's been a resolution, an improvement in the situation, to give that is very arbitrary, say a reasonable period of time. So we need greater clarity on that. I'm concerned about some of the language of making sure that there's still a preservation of academic freedom. If someone has a contrarian viewpoint, then we're not going into an intimidation issue, but if someone has a contrarian viewpoint, that they're not harassing somebody, that they're still, their academic freedom is protected. The whole issue of posturing, I don't know what that means. Like, if I go like this, am I like intimidating people? Is that posturing? I have concerns about that. So, like, I talked about a lot of these issues during prior meetings, and they were not addressed, not corrected, not amended. So, at this stage, I'm not pleased with it. And again, it's 11 pages, and I've reviewed it multiple times, and I brought those concerns up during prior meetings. I still want to have a bullying policy, obviously, but those are my concerns, that we have to reduce the timeline of furnishing a report with substantiation. The reasonable time frame there should be a substitution in terms of 5-day turnaround to address the targeted subject and make sure everything's okay, if it's working properly. The academic freedom I have concerns about. We need greater clarity on certain items. And then the posturing thing, that it would have to get an explanation on that. But at this stage, unless we have entertained some friendly amendments, I'm not really happy with voting on this tonight. But that's my opinion. Thank you.
May I, so it appears that we don't have the updated policy in front of you that the subcommittee did amend? Is that correct? So I guess I don't know what that means.
In that case, I would recommend a motion to table.
Perfect.
Yes, and then it can come back up again at a future meeting.
My sincere apologies for that.
Okay.
Do we have a motion to table, or do we want further discussion?
Motion to table.
Second.
Motion to table from Member Shabilia. The second is from Member DiZoglio. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, and the measure has been tabled. We're now on to needing a motion and a second to approve the policy relative to whistleblowing. This is the first read, so do we have a motion and a second?
So moved.
Second.
Motion from Member Willett, second from Member DiZoglio. Discussion? Member Shabilia?
I can give some background about where this is coming from. One of the first things I heard in January when I wandered into this role is that folks feel that they are discouraged from coming forward with things. And I don't think that's a Methuen issue. I think that it is a general employment issue. No one wants to be the person to sing the song. Following suit with the city, I know that you folks, the city council passed one of these, I don't know, it was a year or two ago? A while ago, huh? Well, time flies when you're having fun. And I think that this, coupled with the audit that's coming forward, provides some comfort to folks. So I try to keep it as simple as possible. There was a first draft that went off to Attorney Maccaro that I may have been a little overzealous on, but I was able to peel myself back and get this to be a more realistic document. The policy statement is clear. It's about maintaining the culture of ethical integrity, accountability, and transparency, which I think is something that we all agree on. The reporting procedure, I would be curious to get the feeling of the committee. We, as a legislative board, are not involved in the day-to-day, but this does put us in the distribution list for people submitting, I don't know, whistles. Anytime someone blows that whistle, purely so that we are in the know. We're not involved with managing it. That still falls to the administration. But it's when all of a sudden someone has an issue who's never had issues before, because that was the concern that was raised to me when talking to folks and kind of forming the concept for this in my mind. I fully anticipate it having a little bit of work. I don't think it's the best thing ever written, but I think it's a pretty solid start, and I am open to hearing what everyone else has to say about it.
Thank you, Member Shabilia. Member DiZoglio, and then Member Willett.
So I'm not going to say much about it because I totally agree with it. However, also, like, when I hear now being in the union with teachers, we have protections already in place. So adding another layer, I am perfectly fine with it. But the fact that when teachers say to me, well, I don't want repercussions, they know that their union, if the second, like, just saying you say that's never had a problem before, and then they reported something, and then all of a sudden the smallest infraction is led into them, they could file a grievance because they can prove that they were the whistleblower and then they've never had a problem. And the smallest little thing, it could happen, and I'm not saying would, but if it was to happen, they have a legitimate reason to file a grievance. That's why now being part of the union for a while now, I understood the rules from the other end, and the protections that we have within our union is good. But the fact that we're adding this layer as a legislative board, I'm all for it. So now this gives them the extra protection from us as the school committee members than just a union basis. That's all.
Member Willett?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In January, I felt that there was a need to have an ethical policy in terms of our negotiations. And we've passed a strong ethical policy in terms of our handling of negotiations. I think this is part and parcel of that, is that we should have a whistleblower policy. The only thing that I would offer as a friendly amendment is that within the policy itself, is that there should be a provision saying something to the effect of nothing in this policy shall prevent an individual from going to either the State Ethics Commission or to the state office of the Inspector General's office, and have the appropriate numbers of contact. So that would be the only thing I would offer as we're going through, maybe just, I don't know if this has been vetted through our school attorney. I'm not sure if that's, okay. I'm pretty solid with the language. The only thing I would offer is a friendly amendment, and the sponsor can discuss it, is that should be something to the effect of, if someone has an impasse, if they feel that they need to go to either the State Ethics Commission or to the Office of the Inspector General, that they still have that available, and they might not even be aware of it, and that they would have the appropriate numbers and contact information to do so. So that would be the only thing I would offer. But other than that, I reviewed it a couple of times. I think it's solid, but I would just offer that to the sponsor. Thank you.
Vice Chair?
So I have some concerns with us getting emails about these sort of situations because we are not in the business of the day-to-day workings. We're also not in the business of personnel issues. And those personnel issues are confidential. And so for us to be getting these sort of things, I don't know what the purposes of us getting the email is because there's nothing that we should be getting involved in as a school committee member. So we get this information and what do we do with it? Do we go to the superintendent and talk to her about it? And how much can she say? It's a personnel issue. So I feel like we're a little bit overreaching our purview by getting emails about this. I think this is really something that should be dealt with below us. And, I mean, we're the policy people, we're not the implementation people. And so I'm a little bit concerned about us being involved in that.
Thank you, Vice Chair. So it was suggested the idea of an amendment. Do we want to actually make that amendment, Member Willett, propose it? And
Mr. Chairman, I would volunteer that to the sponsor if he would entertain that as a friendly amendment. That would be my.
Being a first read, do we need a friendly amendment?
So what I would recommend is if there is a desire to amend the legislation, I would recommend a formal motion and a second to amend to incorporate specific language, and then that change can be made, and then when it's presented for the second read, we would have the updated document that would include the amendment. However, that's something that can be done at any time over the course of this meeting, and then when we have the second read, we can continue to amend as needed as we go. So that it'll leave it to the will of the body.
So based off of what Member Willett is saying, I just don't feel like that wouldn't be necessary be put in. But what I would recommend is that the person that's whistleblowing could bring in their union rep or something like that, because they wouldn't go to the state, we wouldn't go to the state labor board or anything. We would just go to our union rep and file our grievance. Like I'm just confused then what Member Willett is saying, because if I felt like I was being, like, I wouldn't go to the, so can you just clarify what you're explaining? Because as a union member, I don't think I would call.
I think I can simplify Member Desire. I think Member Willett is suggesting the idea of simply including a line in the legislation that refers to the availability of the option to consult with perhaps the State Ethics Commission or file a report with them. Otherwise, that might be something that folks might not be aware of. Correct me if I'm wrong, Member Willett?
Yeah, if I could just have the floor, just to answer the question. We're not talking about if you have a work issue that would go through the normal channels of a union contract. What we're talking about is instances of fraud, corruption, unethical behavior, abusive conduct, the creation of a hostile work environment. So to me, there's a mechanism already in place, and you already well-versed with your union delegates and everything like that, and they go through a process. We're talking about, and hopefully it never happens in Methuen, but there is widespread at times in other communities. You have instances of fraud, corruption, unethical behavior, and for instance, the Office of the Inspector General, they do have jurisdiction over municipal employees and school employees. They do have jurisdiction in those instances. The State Ethics Commission does have jurisdiction over municipal and school employees. So all I'm saying is go through the process, and if you feel personally you have an impasse and you're not getting a resolution, a person might not be aware of the opportunity to go to the Ethics Commission. They might not be aware of the opportunity to go to the Office of the Inspector General. So all I'm asking is that information and applicable numbers are included as part of the policy, that it's gonna be circulated anyways. I believe that was one of the provisions, is that the people will have an opportunity to review this policy, have a copy of it, and at the end of the day, if they wanna go to the, maybe they wanna bypass and say, no, I'm all set, I'll go to the Ethics Commission, which is well within their right, or the Office of the Inspector General, which is well within their right. They might want to go through us. They might want to go through the mayor's office or Maggie as a CAFO. There's all kinds of different opportunities to do so. I just don't want to limit somebody just to be local and that's it, and feel that they don't have a mechanism beyond that. And it's very straightforward, very clear. And it's all my intention is my friendly amendment, and that's it. It has nothing to do with you have a grievance of you had to go cover a recess.
Well,
you know, or cover a lunch. That has nothing to do with that. That's not the substance of this. Thank you.
I'll invite Member Donovan to speak.
I just have 2 points of clarification. Member Shabilia, it's not clear to me, has our school committee attorney looked this over, and have we gotten feedback from him?
The original draft went to Attorney Maccaro. He came back with the feedback, and this is the product that came from that.
And this is the finished product from him?
Yes.
Okay. I'm just wondering if we've had any, our friends at MASC have any input or could give us, I understand exactly what you're saying, Member Keegan. I get that. I always get a little nervous when we get information that's a bit, oh, do we really need this? Is it good information because it's something that, you know, it's juicy? And no, I know that, but we know how human nature is. And to protect everybody, since this is a whistleblower thing, we obviously want to be protective of the people involved. And I think inviting a larger community to get all the deets and have no real function in it other than to know is a little bit concerning to me. So I would be curious what our friends at MASC would say if they have something similar.
So I do agree. So as far as the reporting procedure, this was a product of conversation. As I said, do I think it's the best way? No. Is it the best way that I came up with when doing this? Actually, it's the second best way. Attorney Maccaro vetoed my first one. So I mean, I'm open to a modification. I understand, Member Keegan, where you're coming from, and I agree with you. But the concept of folks wanting that impartial, what they view as protection, is real. It is a real thing, and I couldn't come up with a way to accomplish that in a less, let's call it, intrusive manner. Open to suggestions. I'm open to tabling it and bringing it back and talking about it.
Can I just make one comment, just so that it pertains to what Member Donovan said? So we had called MASC to get a policy code, because this actually doesn't exist with MASC. So they don't have much, there's no like already template for this. And she did give us a code to use ACGC. So that's why in the vote tonight, it'll be ACGC. So
You have the second round, Member Vice Chair Keegan?
Thanks. So perhaps it goes to the mayor, because he's the chair of the school committee and he's also the chair of the city. So if there's something this big that needs to be whistleblown, then I think the mayor probably should be in the know, but I don't know that the rest of us need to be in the know.
Would you be willing to make a friendly amendment?
I support that, if you want to make the friendly amendment. If we want to make it all as one friendly amendment,
I don't know on that. The mayor could be the hypothetically.
I will briefly say just one thing, and I know this is the first read. If anybody has been following Methuen government for the past 4.5 years, they would probably know that I've generally been an enthusiastic fan of protections for whistleblowers. So personally, I favor this policy. What we will entertain amendments to the legislation, and then the committee can decide on those, and then the second read would be, in essence, adopting the legislation as amended. I think that's the cleanest way to do it in a parliamentary sense. So here we go. Amendments. Member Willett?
So I will offer a friendly amendment to include contact information on the State Ethics Commission and the State Office of the Inspector General in the policy.
Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
So we have the motion from Member Willett and the second from Member Vice Chair Keegan to offer up an amendment that would include information regarding options available in the context of the State Ethics Commission. Do we have any discussion about the proposed amendment?
Clarification and Inspector General, you said.
Oh, yeah,
as well.
excuse me, yeah, State Ethics Commission and the Office of
And the IG.
Inspector. Because those, I think those are the two rubrics that we would be going through a lot of this, yeah.
Great. Do we have discussion regarding the proposed amendment? If not, we'll vote on the proposed amendment. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So that amendment has been adopted. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to request a motion and a second to adopt as amended, and then we can reopen it for additional amendments.
Gotcha.
We need a motion and a second
So
to
moved.
approve this
Second.
amendment. Okay. We're going to continue discussion. Further amendments. Member Donovan.
So the amendment would be that the notification would go to the chairman of the school committee, as opposed to the entire committee.
Do we have a second?
Second.
So we have a motion and a second to offer up an additional amendment that would have information go directly to the chair of the school committee rather than the entire committee. It's been seconded. Discussion. Member Willett?
The only thing, like, I have a caveat about it is that I know for a fact, I'm not going to mention the person's name, but the largest amount of ethical violation fines in state that allowable was levied against a prior mayor, and we've had, obviously excluding the current administration or the prior administration, but before that, we've had major issues regarding civil service and ethical violations and contracts. So to have it all go into one entity, I'm concerned about that. And there's nothing against the current occupant of the office, but the prior history, very leery of that. You need checks and balances. So I would rather just maintain the policy as is. But I understand the rationale for it, but the previous history of massive ethical violations and civil service issues and contract issues, I'm kind of leery of it, but I just want to offer that. Thank you.
Member Willett, thank you. So we're going to have Member Zoglio and then Member Shabilia.
So, thank you, Member Willett, for bringing that up, because now it makes me wonder, should, and again, we would have to get it clarified by the city attorney, no? You don't want to add, no? Okay, I'm just asking where we can go with this type. See, this is where I fall on, because I forget that person's name. So, yeah, I don't know where we would go with that.
Member Shabilia?
For what it's worth, I agree with you. We have the two candidates sitting in the room right now, and I don't believe either one of you would do anything wild or crazy. However, history has shown us in this city that not all mayors are created equal. My suggestion before voting on this would be that we table it. Let's have the discussion, come up with what is viewed as an appropriate, and take it from there.
I will add my commentary that I agree with what has been said. Not all occupants of the office of mayor have been shining examples of integrity. But what I would recommend at this point, we are discussing the proposal to amend it. So I think we need to vote on the proposed amendment, and then we can return to discussion regarding the main motion, which is relative to the legislation as a whole. So at this point, I think it would be best if we simply vote yes or no on the proposed amendment, and then we'll return to the main question. All those in favor of the proposed amendment say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no.
No.
No. So the noes will have it, so we're going to return back to the main question. And at this point, we are going to continue with the discussion regarding this proposal as amended. We can potentially table it, that would qualify as a first read, or we can simply vote on it as amended at this time. Yes.
I apologize, I just have a question. So the vote you just did was on Member Donovan's friendly amendment. I just need to know, can I do a roll call, because I don't know who voted yes.
That'd be fine. We can take a roll call vote on that for the record.
Member DiZoglio?
No.
Member Donovan?
Yes.
Member Keegan?
Yes.
Member Shabilia?
No.
Member Willett?
No.
Mayor Beauregard?
No.
It fails 2 yes, 4
So-
no.
So as I referenced, we're back to the main question. So we are discussing the legislation as amended. It does include the proposed amendment as it relates to the Ethics Commission and the OIG. So either way, a table would satisfy a first read, or simply a vote on the legislation, assuming it's favorable, would also satisfy the first read. So either way, regardless of what we do, we are able to proceed with the second read as amended, assuming passage tonight. So is there any other question, any other questions or discussion? Member Willett?
Just as a point of clarification, is there a process of, if the policy is ultimately approved, to distribute it to the community, to the employees? Is there a mechanism within the policy? Because if we do a policy, sometimes a policy collects dust, but is this policy going to be distributed to the employees as a result? Then I don't know if I see that within the policy itself. So that would be a friendly amendment. I would like to have, if it ultimately is approved, I would like to have it distributed to even the parents, the volunteers, the employees of the Methuen Public Schools. So they're offered as a friendly amendment.
So a proposal for another amendment has been made to include language that would facilitate the sharing of this legislation upon passage to, I would assume, the entire Methuen Public School community. Do we have a second? I'm sorry. Did I misstate that?
Well, I'll do is, it's a friendly amendment, so if the sponsor's not in favor of, I will withdraw it.
A little overbroad for my.
Okay.
Okay.
I'll
So
be respectful,
we'll
I'll
proceed-
withdraw it.
We'll proceed with discussion regarding the main question.
Okay, I was gonna say that could possibly happen if you submit it to the document to the union and have the union distribute it to its members and make it easier for us. That's how I would say go about it, and leave it up to the presidents and the union reps of every building to distribute that policy to them and their workers. I feel like this policy, just because I'm a union member of it, I feel like we should include the union a little bit involved in it, because it could come back to us and be like, the union thinks we're shutting them out on policies that could help their members. Just saying, that should be the union's job of giving it to its members.
But not every employee is part of a union in Methuen
Sure.
Public Schools.
Member Willett?
Again, I try to work in terms of like professional courtesy, and the sponsor was a little bit ambivalent about it, and I respected that. So once the policy is passed, hopefully, you're well within your rights to distribute it how you see fit. So that's not a problem on that. I just want to say that. Thank you.
Can I make a motion to table this so we can bring it back to the drawing board? Thank you.
Motion to table from Member Shabilia, second from Member Donovan. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The item has been tabled, and that does, as I referenced earlier, satisfy the first read for the legislation. We now, at this point, need a motion and a second to approve the policy relative to the school committee's professional development, the second and final read.
So moved.
Second.
Motion from Member Shabilia, the second is from Member Donovan. Discussion? Member DiZoglio?
I just want to thank Dr. Kwong for cleaning it up. Basically, made my point much clearer. So hopefully this policy is passed, and we can start training in January or February, wherever works for everybody.
Any other questions or comments? If not, we'll vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, and the measure has been passed.
Thank you, everyone.
At this point, I'll invite Member Shibeli to begin the discussion regarding the policy regarding public participation.
So this is something that's been presented at the podium a few times. It's made its rounds online a few times. Folks are concerned about the privacy of having to state publicly their address. Me, personally, it doesn't matter. Our addresses here are plastered everywhere for the world to see, but I can understand how some would be apprehensive about it. To the best of my knowledge, in my research, there is no state regulation requiring address disclosure. There has never been a time at the podium, and please correct me if I'm wrong, that someone has been denied the opportunity to speak because they are not a Methuen resident. I quite frankly don't understand the requirement anymore. I don't think it has any real bearing on us. And as far as I'm concerned, I understand them having to write it on the sign-up sheet. That gets put in, and it still becomes public record, but it's not being announced public on air. Like that poor woman last week who tried to give her cell phone number twice. I see no harm in letting that particular requirement fall to the wayside, but to quote Member Willett, one voice, one vote, so.
Briefly, I just want to state, just to guide the conversation, that we do not have an actionable item on the agenda. There isn't a proposed piece of legislation to amend the policy, so there won't be a vote on this, but nevertheless, this is the opportunity for discussion, so I'll open it up to the floor for additional questions, comments. Member Willett?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I know that we've had speakers that have not identified themselves or their address has been, they still spoke, and I respect that. I don't have a problem with that. And like Member Shabilia indicated, I also did a deep dive. I don't see any state requirement, any state law that mandates you identifying your name and address for the record. And obviously, we have a Jane Doe factor too. We want to protect certain people because of what happened to them in the past. So I don't have a problem at the next meeting just to amend it, and that we do have a sign-up sheet. It will be included as part of the minutes. If they decide just they want to put down their name without the address, I really don't have a problem with it. And like Member Shabilia indicated, we're not just inclusive of just Methuen residents. We've had people from outside Methuen, and I really don't have a problem with people outside Methuen if they're critical of us at times. And also too, like if someone mentions my name, I really don't have a problem with it unless they go into like deep character assassination, because this is freedom of speech. So if someone is critical of a policy and they may want to just say, Mr. Willett, I don't like your policy, or I approve your policy. We've had people direct their comments to the chair. I really don't have a problem with that either. I'm a big advocate for freedom of speech. And I don't have a problem with saying you have a sign-up sheet and you just have a name and address, and it's an optional approach. And you just say, go up there and speak your piece. We still have the 5-minute regulation, as we should. Other than that, I think it's been brought up through the podium, through emails, so I don't see the harm in it. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Willett. Other comments, discussion? If not, we'll move on to Member Shabilia, the conversation regarding the mental health subcommittee.
Before we do that,
Okay.
My question on this would be next steps. Do we want to see this come to the, a marked up version of this come to the next meeting for a vote?
I would avoid polling
Oh,
the
sorry.
membership. However, I think if it is of interest to bring it before the committee as a suggested policy change at the next meeting, that would be, I guess, a recommendation. And then we can discuss further. So yes, mental health subcommittee.
This was brought to my attention. A group of parents has formed this group. I received a Facebook invite to the group. shortly after it was formed, because I feel like they know it holds a special place near and dear. And speaking with the woman who started it, I expressed my desire to be able to aid them in any way we can. In doing so, the conversation spun into a subcommittee who could, meet with them on a quarterly basis, monthly, but whatever cadence is appropriate, and be able to advocate alongside them. This group, to the best of my knowledge, is, for lack of a better term, a lobbying group, which I think is essentially their goal. So, I mean, my ask would be to form the subcommittee and set up a structure with that group to bring their suggestions and policy changes, and whatever it is that they are advocating for that we deem appropriate, back to the table for group consumption.
Thank you, Member Shabilia. Do we have any comments, questions regarding the suggestion? Member DiZoglio?
I'm all for subcommittees. Trust me, I've been on plenty of them and formed all of them. The question is that I'm concerning is merging with parents right now, and I don't know who these parents are. I don't know what their expertise are. And the fact that they're a lobbying group.
My word, not theirs.
Oh, okay. There's a lot of questions with this group that if they were to ever come maybe before the committee so they can express their concerns, and if they have reasonable concerns, and like I said, I don't know who these people are, and I'm all for subcommittees, but that's just my concern of forming a subcommittee before I meet the people that we possibly are working with, essentially.
Any other questions, comments? We'll have Member Willett and Member Donovan.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I always try to be on a fact-finding mission in my capacity as a school committee member, and I try to gather as much information as possible. What I've so far have devised of their intentions, from my perspective, is that one of it would entail actually the filing of state legislation, because it's talking about an opt-out policy, and that would be the purview of the State House. And then there was another concern, rightly or wrongly, about a national organization. And that would, again, blur the lines between this school committee and that group. I don't think that they have any affiliation with the Methuen Public Schools. So, personally, I would rather be invited to those meetings because they have freedom of assembly. If they have concerns, as a duly elected member, I will listen to those concerns because I'm on a fact-finding mission. Again, I don't have the background of the licensure. I'm not involved in the mental health field. I was a public servant. My master's degree is in political science. But part of our mission statement is to make sure we have optimal mental health. But based on my initial read of that group, is that they had concerns about an opt-out approach, which would be the purview of the state legislature to file legislation, which they have the right to do. And also they had concerns about a national organization, and that they wanted to make sure that their voices were facilitated, so to speak, on that. And that's a separate thing. That's like a lobbying group, so to speak. So I would make sure we have a firewall on that. But I'm more than willing to meet with their group. I've offered any bunch of parents and groups to meet anytime. I was affiliated with it. The SPED was part of the special education parents pack. I was part of that. I went to those meetings, and they brought concerns to my attention. But that's a function of the relationship to the school administration and the school committee. This is a separate entity, that it's at the initial stages of it, and they have maybe some valid concerns, and I'm trying to navigate that, but I'm concerned about setting up a subcommittee that would serve as a conduit, that other people might not be purview to it, and then it would be a conduit coming back to the full school committee. And I'm not sure at this stage that it's meritorious or warranted, so that would be my opinion. Thank you.
Member Donovan?
I'd like to echo my agreement with two folks who've already spoken. We don't know enough about this organization. I value that they are taking action. I invite them to come to the meetings. Obviously, we'd be happy to visit them, but we don't really know except what we read on Facebook. And I think we'd be doing a tremendous disservice to them by making this commitment, because I think it promises some sort of access to decisions. And then I think about all the other organizations that are driven by concerned parents. We open that door, should we be creating subcommittees for them? So I'm very uncomfortable with it, but I'm not uncomfortable. I'm so thrilled that these folks are willing to try to do something different. I know it might stem from a disagreement within the district and within efforts made by parents and staff members, and I hope that issue is being addressed and maybe resolved, so we're not reinventing the wheel in many ways. But right now, I have some serious concerns about making that kind of commitment.
Vice Chair?
I'm just going to echo the same concerns. We have PTOs that we don't have a subcommittee for. We have CPAC, we have LPAC, we have all of these official groups that have been around for years and years and years that we don't have subcommittees with the school committee. And really the appropriate thing for those groups to be doing is to be working with the school district, not trying to jump over the district and going to the school committee. And like, I feel like it's a backwards way. Like, they haven't even started yet, and they're going to the governing body versus the people who are actually doing the work. So they should be meeting with the district before they come to us. I'm thrilled that they're wanting to do something. I'm thrilled to have them come and present to us when they have something that they want to present to us. But I'm very uncomfortable starting a subcommittee for a parent group that doesn't really exist yet.
I'll briefly wrap up simply by saying, or actually, it's not a statement, just offering up a suggestion or an idea, perhaps to the folks who are interested in this issue of addressing mental health, namely in the context of our schools. So, I think it's widely acknowledged that we are dealing with a mental health crisis across the board in our country and here at the local level too. And in order to try to do what we can at the local level to help address that, Mayor Perry and Chair Ferretra established a couple of months back a mental health task force that has been meeting frequently. And there is representation from the school department by way of Mr. Crocker, but I would certainly welcome the potential addition of perhaps one or two representatives from the school committee and maybe other groups, simply because that, first of all, would help avoid any quorum issues, but also this group really is designed to review all of the different ideas that are coming through the pipeline, triage them, and then establish action items, specific steps that we can take in order to make various policy changes, et cetera. So it's just an idea. Perhaps maybe we can streamline this conversation a little bit using our existing resources at the city level, but also on the school side too. We can take a second round. That's fine. Member Willett.
So Mr. Chairman, I agree with that process. And I also want to emphasize that I know Representative Hamilton and Member Shabilia will be hosting an event, a listening tour at the Nevins Library. And again, that is an ample opportunity for people to bring forward their concerns about corrective legislation that needs to be done at the state level. Because in January, there's going to be a mad dash to file thousands of pieces of legislation. So that opt-out process that they were advocating for, that would be the forum, because you have a direct state representative in conjunction with Member Shabilia at that listening tour at the Nevins Library to bring forward that. I think that was a major tenet of that group. And then, obviously, what you said, the other vehicle, I think, is healthy to have that discussion as well. And then we're open and transparent to the process. And again, like, I'm always open to meet with a group, but I also just don't want it to be going back and forth and no resolution to something. So if someone feels like there needs to be a change, we can't change the mental health policy locally. That's a state law. But if they felt, I'm not in favor of it, but if someone is in favor of an opt-out approach, they would approach their legislative delegation to see either by a filing by themselves, or if they get enough members to file legislation, then the legislation could be filed in January, and then they can advocate it through the process. So that there's different vehicles to work on this, other than this subcommittee right now, and I share the sentiments of my members, fellow members on it.
Any other questions, comments? Member Shabilia?
This is the first I'm hearing in the conversations I've had with them about the opt-out policy. I know that there was a lot of conversation about that outside of the committee. I don't think that that was a primary topic, because it didn't come up in the conversation I had with the, let's call her the founder. You are right, it was born out of, let's call it dispute, I think it was called. And that's fine. Some of the best causes are born out of dispute, and they end up becoming something wonderful. I understand the hesitation, and I respect that, and it may have been a little over course correction, and that's okay. It is what it is. But I do want to express that, they're seeing themselves, based on what I've read, is they're as a CPAC type group, which I think is going to be beneficial, and hopefully they can still do what they want to do, form their group, form their leadership, and bring forward their suggestions and recommendations, and we will do what is in the best interest of the community.
Thank you, Member Shabilia. We'll move on at this point to the next.
Excuse me, Mayor Beauregard.
Oh, yes, the student representative, thank you.
I just wanted to humbly contribute in my very unexperienced, in my very small experience. I've just seen that creating groups is sometimes counterproductive. I think there's a plethora of organizations, lots of acronyms out there, and I've seen that growing those groups seem to be more effective than creating more. I'm not fully informed about this subcommittee group that may be created, but I just wanted to add that it could potentially be more effective to grow already effective groups that we have, like if MHPSEC has more representation, or if the task force that Mr. Crocker is a part of, if they had more, or if the Safe and Supportive Schools Commission had more representation, I think that would be more effective rather than creating more groups. But again, that's my unexperienced opinion. And one last thing is that I would also just like to be a little bit more informed about this, just so I can contribute better. So if there's any way that I would be able to also have some information, I'd greatly appreciate that. Thank you.
I can connect you with the group.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Representative, and I'd also be happy to share additional information about that task force as well.
Thank you, sir.
Great. So we're going to move on to the next part of the agenda, which deals with, of course, finance and operations. We have first the expenditure report. Do we have any questions from the committee regarding the expenditure report? If not, move right down the list. We have next up the revolving funds report. Any questions from the committee? Grants report. Any questions from the committee relative to the grants report? Student activity accounts. Questions from the committee? Food services report. Questions from the committee? Member Willett?
The only thing I would ask again to the administration is that we do some type of survey of the students. I've been asking that repeatedly. It's just as a courtesy, just to gauge the student population on the food service. I'm seeing leaps and bounds in terms of infrastructure upgrades and an outreach approach, and I appreciate that from the food service director, but I also want to gauge the student population on the lunches and breakfasts. So if that can be done, I'm hoping, I don't have to put it as part of an agenda item. I'm hoping that it could just simply be done at a future point of time. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Willett. We're on to contract approval. We have no contracts on the agenda tonight. Next is notifications of appointments and other personnel matters. There are none. Moving on to other business from the committee, Member Shabilia, I invite you to give the update regarding the policy subcommittee.
Spent a good amount of time chasing down our friends at MASC. They had a conference last week, so they were wholly unreachable. So I am waiting for a kickoff email to get our policy review process rolling. To answer your earlier question, Member DeZoglio, that project will review any and all policies we have, handbooks, all the whole 9 yards. And it'll compare it to what they deem as current best practice and what their policies and framework is set up. So it'll be a good benchmark. It'll then come back. My hope is that it would then come to the policy subcommittee, because their framework is not necessarily going to be specific to Methuen. It's going to be a broad framework that they would apply to every district, and Methuen is not the same as Agawam. We're not going to have the same policies. So the subcommittee would then tweak those, and they would come up for vote and update. That, I think, is it for the policy subcommittee at this time.
Great, and I'll have more to add about this, but I'll invite you to share an update from the audit subcommittee.
The audit subcommittee, so Member Donovan, myself, and Mayor Beauregard met, I don't know, a week ago, to do scoring of the bidder for the audit. That went well. The next step there would be to have it go up to the city council, and I think we are on a good track there, and I know you have further update.
Yeah, so the plan is to get this settled with the city council in the month of December so that we can begin the process. I do want to mention that in the middle of all of this, we do have the special election coming up on December 10th. My plan at this point, in terms of funding the audit, is to go to the council in all likelihood with a request for a free cash transfer so that we can pay for the audit on the city side, but that is in flux with everything else that's going on. But from my vantage point here, that is my plan as it relates to the funding piece, and we'll be able to get the audit done from that point forward. So that's the latest regarding the audit.
May I ask a question?
Superintendent, yes.
How many bids did we have?
We
Do
received
we know,
one.
can you actually say who the awarding, or is that not formalized yet?
So we have reviewed it. We did receive one, yeah, but the details we'll be able to present that once we bring it to the council.
So
We did receive one bid.
You can't make that public, name that right now, just so we know the name of the auditor?
Ian?
You can. All bids are public.
Yep.
So we could have sat in the room and listened, so they are absolutely public.
So it is a reputable auditing firm. They've been around for over 70 years. The name of the firm that placed the bid is Markham.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
Collective bargaining updates.
I have a
Ellen?
question, I'm sorry.
Yes.
For the audit, is it both pieces of the audit, or is it just one piece of the audit? Like, what actually is being audited?
Good question. So this will deal with the operational side of the public schools, and then we're going to be going out to bid for the financial piece separately.
Thank you.
Of course. So we're on to collective bargaining updates. We'll invite a member of the Unit A negotiating team to begin the discussion relative to Unit A.
Dr. Kwong, did you want to present this, or do you want us to present this?
It makes better sense for you all to start, and then I can add in the negotiations for Unit A.
Unit A, what do we have? Member Shabilia?
They're all looking at you, I guess, for you to start.
So I think the first thing that's most important is this information is being shared live on the website. I know there'll be an update posted tomorrow for the
Yes.
most recent round. I think that is something folks should be aware of. There has been let's call it a social media blitz, and the information that is out there, while accurate, may be dramatized for clicks, essentially. The last round of negotiations we had, we did go in 0.25% higher, and they did come down on their third year 0.25% low. But I think that what people need to understand, and when they go and look at that website, is where for every percentage point that this contract goes up, we're talking, and correct me if I'm wrong,
I will.
about $2 million, correct? No?
I'm going to invite Colleen to join me.
Oh, she looks as surprised as I am.
Hi, Ms. McCarthy. Thank you for joining us.
Colleen, we should just get you a name tag. You should just be part of the party.
No, thank you. I appreciate it, but no, thank you. I will pass.
Thanks, but no thanks.
Sorry, say what you said again, or Colleen, do you know? I just want to make sure we're answering the right question.
So 1% is 520,000.
Yeah.
But then you've got to add in your steps, which was part of the contract this year. So that's part of this year's cost with steps plus. I just need to pull up the spreadsheet if you can give me just a
Is it the one that I had you print for me?
Yeah.
So I can tell you, so at 2.75 with the steps, you're at a little over $2.5 million, which looks like to be a 4.95% increase, because I think what people need to be aware of is every year you go up a step. That is not included in the COLA, which is the adjustment.
Except for the top step.
Except for the top step.
Yep.
But for those folks still working their way up the ladder, can you tell us what the average step percentage is? Because I know they're not all the same.
They're not.
He was right.
Would be far too easy if they were.
5.5.
Yeah, it's very variable with this scale. They go anywhere from like 3 to in the 6s.
So depending on what step you're at, you're already getting a 3 to 6% increase plus the COLA on top of it. I think that's the narrative that's not being told to folks out publicly. I think the fact that even on the news now with the 3 districts that are front and center, the term fair is being thrown around, and no one has stepped up to define what fair is. And the number right now, and again, please correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm doing this from memory, because I was
know.
not prepared to have to present this.
You're doing good.
Oh, thanks. Falsely inflate my ego here, right? Is 6.6 and 5.75. Is that the last?
5.75
5.75.
is their offer, or is their proposal. Ours is 2.7533.
Right, and the 5.75 would be a difference well, for what would be this year, of 3.7 and change. Based if I'm reading this chart correctly. And so that really boils down to people getting between an 8 and a 12, depending on the steps. I don't think there's anyone out there in the world that's getting an 8 to 12% raise on an annual basis, short of job jumping, which I think COVID really encouraged. It's scary as a parent who depends on his kids to go to school every morning so I can get some work done. It's scary to turn on the news and hear that the word colluding being tossed around up on the North Shore. That was what the Channel 4 folks said last night. These are real numbers with real problems, and the narrative that's being thrown around that Mayor Perry was hiding money is not only ridiculous, but a criminal accusation. And I think that it is far too casual for people to make those statements without fact, because that is not a, you stole my lunch money, you ate my candy bar. That is, you committed a crime. And that is a very different statement.
Can I add something?
Vice Chair?
I also want to point out that the narrative that there's city money to be used is false, because the only money that we are allowed to use is the school budget. And we had that budget approved by the city council in June. There is no more money than the school budget. We, by law, have to have a balanced budget. So if we're giving 12% raises, we have to balance that budget somehow. And so that's the reality that we're looking at. And we already have a staffing shortage. And if we have to make that worse, we have that bigger class sizes, we have all of this other stuff. So we have to balance our budget, and our budget was set in June. So there is no more money. And I think the saying that there's city money to use, there is no city money to use. The only city money that there is the school budget. And I think that false narrative going out to parents is unfair, because we're stuck negotiating with only the school budget.
Member DiZoglio?
I just want to just add something also, and that also the narrative is also being spread around them here. Parents saying, well, our teachers haven't gotten a raise. As a union member and also an educator, I get a raise every year. So it's not like they're going without a raise. That's what they're telling people, that they're sitting on their salaries every year. That's what I'm getting from what parents are telling me. And I said, nope, we get a raise every year. So the question is that what they're asking is, Member Shibeli is saying they want step increases. This is a totally different than the raise increases. Because as a, you said
COLA.
COLA.
It's step and COLA, so that's how we
Yeah,
talk about them.
That's
Step-
right, let me add that.
Step.
But like I said, no teacher doesn't get a raise. They get a raise every year. So I just want to clarify that from a teacher's perspective. And I want to get that cleared up to parents as well.
We're going to have a real flexible discussion here, so I'm going to invite Member Shibeli to speak again.
I think before the discussion continues, we need to level set. I don't think there's a single person in this room that does not support the work that these people are doing in the building. I have said publicly more times than I can count, that is a job I could never do. I lack the skill set to walk into a classroom, and if I had hair, I'd probably pull it out. I could never do that job. The reality is, this is not a good teacher, bad teacher conversation. This is a fiscal conversation that very unfortunately gets very personal for how many kids we have times all of their parents and everyone else who's involved in their care and upbringing and helping people get to and from school and all of those things that are involved. Everyone here is supporting the teachers. Everyone here wants to do everything we can. And if it were up to me and money, there was a money tree in the back end, I'd give everybody all the money. That's great. But to Member Keegan's point, we have a finite amount of money to work with. There is no district that is opening up the coffers to pillage their stabilization or free cash. That is not good business. That is not fiscally responsible. These would be one-time encumbrances that you can then not plan for because it's not sustainable. We need to be able to build something that is sustainable. We need to be able to make Methuen appealing so we can attract new teachers, keep the teachers we have, and it's not a one piece. It's not just a contract that's going to do that. It's the operational culture piece that the audit is going to accomplish, and it's going to hopefully drive our district to be better so we can steal the teachers back that we lost to the Lowells and the Andovers and whoever they are. And to say that Methuen can compete with an Andover is silly. We can't compete with Andover. They have more money than we do. And they approved, what they just approved Prop 2.5, right? For their, yeah. I'm fairly certain they did, and I'm fairly certain Melrose just did Linfield just did as well. And that's not our district. That's not the lives that the people in this community live. So I don't want this to become the school committee doesn't support its teachers, because that could not be farther from the truth. There are teachers I talk to every day that know that the only reason I'm sitting here is because I want the best school for my kids, and they are a humongous piece of it. but we have to play by what we've been given.
Member Willett?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I like to study macroeconomics, and I would encourage anyone to look at the vacancy rate for commercial property in Boston and New York, and also look at the latest jobs report nationally, that I think it was 12,000 jobs that were added, and I think the 12,000 jobs were more than likely government jobs. They had a downward revision of 1 million jobs that just disappeared. I think the practicality is, we live in Methuen, and I looked through the history, we have never done a Prop 2.5 override, ever. That is not the mindset of this community. If you look at Andover, you look at the median household income versus us, they might be 2 or 3 times the median household income versus Methuen. There's a lot of homeowners in Methuen that live paycheck to paycheck. The renters, they're not relying upon it other than if the landlord has to increase the rent. The inflation whammy hit us significantly, and we were undercut of the 4.5% inflationary rate for the last 2 fiscal years. Did not even help us with a high water mark of 9.1%. And then it was undercut with, I think it was 1.2 or 1.235, way below. So we lost about $4 to $5 million in Chapter 70 expected growth. $4 to $5 million with a 9 going head northwards of $10 billion rainy day account. Texas, California, which are much larger states, are the only ones that have a larger rainy day account than Massachusetts. The millionaire's tax, I've said it repeatedly, it helps us with the universal meals program, and that's great. It does not help us directly into the classroom. So if we're a gateway community and we have limited resources from the state, and we don't have a history of doing Prop 2.5 overrides, where is that pool of money coming from? And believe me, one-time revenue streams, the people that oversee bonds, you want to see your bond rating collapse, drain that account. So if we have to do a new police station, a new fire station, a new building, let's say a building burns with the Methuen's public schools, unfortunately, hypothetically, right? The bond issue, it would be astronomical because you drained the cash reserves. And also, I learned that a long time ago from a prior mayor that was draining one-time revenue streams doesn't help you at all that following year because it's a one-time revenue stream. So if you look at it from different angles, if you want to sit down with us, we'll go over the numbers with you. If you want to do a parlor game and make accusations, I'm there for that game. Go ahead. I face the voters next year. I know it's a conservative community. I'll take that Pepsi challenge. But either that or if we can sit down and try to have a meeting of the minds and try to have a bona fide compromise. But I think, unfortunately, Mr. Max Page doesn't want to have a compromise. And I think he's agitating his membership. And I think, you know, I saw the rally, I saw a sign from Andover. So you had 3 different school districts that had a rally, and someone must have been invited from Andover because I saw an Andover sign. So you're doing it statewide, and I know there's cooperation between the different unions, and that's fine. We are adults here. I know what's going on. Your focus should be Beacon Hill, because I worked there 24 years. You were undercut as a school district by about $4 million or maybe even $5 million, okay? And we were lucky even to get the 44% in the special ed transportation. That was just a recent occurrence, right? And then at times we were like below 75% for the circuit breaker. We should be 90% or 100% because it should match the child. And then we have the special ed cases, and we also have the illegal alien situation and sanctuary states, and we're not gonna get any resources from the federal government. And now we're hearing that now the state has turned off the faucet, and I don't know if that's a political message. I don't know what they think the incoming party is gonna do about it. But I don't want to be left on our own, and we should be marshaling our resources to the State House. I've said that since January. But let's go play the parlor games, and let's do the memos, and let's do the press releases and the photos and the gotcha. I'm here. I haven't had any teachers sit down with me or say, you know, let's compromise. Let's have a meeting of the minds. No, it's like bomb, 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 and it doesn't work. It really doesn't. Thank you.
Other comments and questions?
So just to finish up with everybody, like I said earlier, but like I said, I'm an educator, and I understand how these teachers are going through in the classroom. And as Member Shabilia said, he would never want to do this job. It is a hard job every day. And I, as a teacher, understand the stress that it does to be put in the classroom, especially as special ed teachers that are dealing with multiple things in a day. But what is frustrating to me, because I grew up in this community, I grew up in Methuen Public Schools. Some of these educators were my teachers. Some of these educators are the people that I went to school with, and some of them are parents of children that I grew up with. So as an educator, as a person that went through the Methuen Public Schools, this hits more, because I understand that it's not that they deserve everything, they've earned everything by working hard with us as students. As Mayor Beauregard and I went to high school together and had the same teachers. We saw our teachers tonight here. So I just, like I said, I want to say, and I was talking to teachers this past weekend, and they see how actively we are doing things. So it's not like we don't care, but we also have a fiscal responsibility to our constituents as well. As an educator, I understand what they are going through, and they've earned everything that they are asking. But as a school committee member, I have to be fiscal conservative to the taxpayers for the future of our children and to our taxpayers, even though I understand some of the people that are teaching are also the taxpayers too. So I'm also looking out for you in both interests, as a teacher, but also as a taxpayer, because if we pay these salaries, your taxes are going up. That's just a fact. So that's all I have to say, Mr. Mayor.
I'd like to begin wrapping up, and we do have to move on to Unit C. I just wanted to quickly add to what's been said here and just state how important I think it is for us to have this conversation with a grounded series of facts. So it's been referenced, the accusation that the late Mayor Perry had been in essence padding free cash with Chapter 70 money. That accusation is absurd. It's ridiculous. It's not true. In fact, any time over the past 4.5 years, the school department budget has come before the city council for approval. I know I, along with my colleagues on the council, we've never voted no. We've always voted yes, every single year from the council side. And since fiscal year 21, over the past couple of fiscal years since then, the school department budget has increased by 30% since fiscal year 21, and that's a fact. And today, 52 cents, roughly, 52 cents of every tax dollar contributed by the citizens of Methuen go to our schools. And so that's why I think it's a great conversation that we're having relative to the audit, to ensure that we're able to guarantee that our resources are being allocated in the most effective manner possible. And I just want to state regarding the teachers. As Member DeZoglio referenced, there are members of Unit A who were teachers of mine when I was in school. There are members of both units who I went to school with personally. And just speaking as one person who is soon to be a Methuen Public Schools parent, my 6-year-old daughter is going to be going into the 1st grade next fall. And so I understand very acutely the importance of investing in our teachers. And I want our teachers to know that I know this whole committee, we are friends to the teachers. At the same time, as the vice chair referenced, we do have a boundary that we have to work within relative to our budget. And so I think we need to find this balance between providing with our teachers with the pay that they need and deserve, while fitting that balance into the current system that we have as it relates to the budget. We'll get to Unit C. I think the current pay for our paraprofessionals, we all acknowledge, is a disgrace. It is a disgrace. And we're working on trying to get to that point where we can achieve that balance. Speaking of Unit C, I will pass it off just to change it up to Member DiZoglio. Member Shabeel, if you want to add anything, feel free. But Member DiZoglio for Unit C.
So I'm going to just do the groundbreaking of it all. We did meet with them, and as we talked to them, and as Member Shabili will agree with me, and Mayor Beauregard said, it is a disgrace what we pay our paras, and they are frustrated with it. But I'm not going to go into too much detail because I was talking to Dr. Kwong about what we were negotiating with them, and we have a plan in place that we will talk about tonight as we move forward. But as I said before, we understand their frustrations. We're frustrated as well. And we're hoping that the plan that we have in place that we will, in executive session, bring forward tonight between the committee is another way to resolve the situation moving forward. That's all I have to say.
Member Shabeel?
So I think it's worthwhile to mention that, again, this is also on the website. There is clarity in numbers. It's factual. It's a factual data dump. There's no spin. There's no agenda. This is what was presented. This is what was presented. And I think that that is a very important thing for people to see. Right now, I couldn't agree more. It is an embarrassment what these folks are being paid for the work that they're doing. That being said, you do not fix 30 years of institutional mistake for the role that these folks have evolved into in 1 year. This is not going to be a 1-year fix. And unfortunately, that is what is being pushed right now. And it's not Methuen, it's MTA statewide. Everything needs to be fixed. It needs to be fixed right now, and it needs to be on the table. At the last meeting, we brought forward a 1-year contract that gave, do you remember the number offhand, on average, the raises that were going to be going out there? We said it in the room a couple of times, but I don't recall what the number was. It was somewhere between 7 and 12 grand.
You mean the dollar increases that we,
Yes.
so the dollar increases?
The market correction for
The market correction, yes.
Were between, so am I reading this right? 60, yeah, 5,500 and 6,800.
And that would have been effective
Yeah.
immediately, and it would have given people back pay
Yeah.
immediately to get everyone rolling before Christmas. And we would have started renegotiating again in January, right after the governor's budget comes out. And that would have given everyone a better foot to start on going into next year to start correcting this problem. We are not going to fix everything in one swoop. It's the same problem we have with Unit A. We have a finite amount of money. Does it need to be fixed? Yes. Does anyone argue against fixing it? No. But right now, we need to be able to do, we need a plan to have steps. The overwhelming sentiment that I've heard from Unit C is they want to be treated like professionals. And I think everyone wants to treat them that way. But that is going to include the opportunity for them to grow, and it's going to include some combination of steps and COLAs and whatever that's going to be. But it's not going to be what was the number? Somewhere around $52,000 that they had put out at first. It's on the website, reference it.
They're at 41 start. right now.
It's not something we're going to get you right now. Is it somewhere that we want to be in due time? But I don't think that happens in a 3-year contract. That is far too much ground to correct. And I think we need to be aware of what other districts are doing. Methuen is not going to drive the market. And as much as I would like to say, let's go a little bit higher than everyone else so we can steal all the good ones, again, we're not going to get there in one swoop. And I really want people to understand that. These folks are doing some of the hardest work. They're literally toileting in buildings, 14-year-olds. Like those are real jobs. And for anybody out there that's buying into the narrative that the school committee doesn't want to support this, or that the school committee is slow walking a contract, or that there has been money hidden in the walls at City Hall or in somebody's trunk, it's foolish, and it's not real. And it's the propaganda to spark the outrage that is going to help when people need to stand outside and hold signs. And as far as I'm concerned, that's kind of where we are. I would love to see this get resolved. I want these people to feel appreciated, and hopefully we can get there soon.
Thank you, Member Shibeli. Any questions, discussion regarding Unit C? We have Vice Chair Keegan and Member Willett.
I know for Unit A this is true, but is it true for Unit C that the school committee attempted to negotiate past June and through the summer, and the union turned us down?
For both A and C, my recollection that we did put forth the offer to meet over the summer. My interpretation of what happened is kind of got ghosted. They told us that they couldn't align schedules. I get it. Let's call a spade a spade. Everyone's on summer vacation. I respect that. I get it. But here we are, and we now have to make up for lost time.
Member Willett?
And this, again, I talk about the macroeconomics, and we'll go into the microeconomics. The conversion of Holy Family Hospital to nonprofit, $1 million just disappeared from our community for tax revenue. So that is another factor that, again, balance. By law, you have to balance the budget. By law, we have to balance the budget. And we have problems year past with that, not balancing the budget. And he had a $4 million deficit that predates us. And that's the reality of the situation. That $1 million just disappeared because of the conversion to nonprofit. So I want to still operate in good faith. I commend the members of the negotiating teams. I commend the mayor working also with the CAFO to get honest budgeting information to the populace. Part of my proposal at the beginning of the year in terms of the ethics and negotiations was making sure we had a budget vehicle, and that was realized by posting the differentials between what we're offering and what the various unions are offering, and there's a huge gulf. And again, we are offering incremental increases, and sometimes they're standing pat or offering something that we cannot afford as a school district. But we will continue to operate in good faith as best we can, and I respect the respective members of the negotiating teams. Thank you.
Thank you. With that, we will move on to any
May I?
other.
I'm sorry, Mayor, may I just make a comment? Because everybody did a great job, so thank you. And just to reiterate the sentiment that having been not on negotiation teams for 23 years, but probably close to it. We've always been able to negotiate in good faith and come to a resolution and an agreement. And I'm very hopeful that we will continue to do that and that we will come to that agreement, because many, like you, I didn't go to school here, so I'm not working with my teachers. However, I'm working with students I had as a principal at the CGS first that work with us in these units. Parents whose daughters and sons have graduated with my daughter. So there's a lot of community investment on both sides. And I think that's incredibly important when we're talking about context and how, we are all doing a best job to continue to negotiate with good faith. That is our role, and that's what we have been doing, and we will continue to do that. So I agree with all of your statements here. I think it's very powerful to have this discussion, and very powerful to know what all of our connections are. And again, that we're very hopeful to come to these agreements. I think it's the most important for our students. I don't want to, I'd be remiss if I didn't say, right, our students are at the core of all of these conversations. Member Shabilia, I think you said it, right, your children, right, we put our children in these folks' hands. I put my children in these folks' hands, so we want to make sure that the children are at the core of this discussion, right? We do want what's best, and balancing all of that is incredibly challenging and has been for my tenure here. But again, I'm very hopeful we'll continue to bargain in good faith. The website will be updated with where we are currently, part of this discussion. So we'll send that out likely by the close of day tomorrow. So, keep your eye on that. And I think those are the things that are important to us as we go through this process. Our commitment, our honesty, our I don't know what the word is, but all of those pieces I think are important and have been stated here for all of you, and certainly all of us, in the school department feel the exact same way. So I just wanted to be able to say that and reiterate that, and you guys did a great job of summarizing and what our thoughts are and what's happening. So thank you.
Thank you, Superintendent. Is there any other business from the committee? Member Shabilia?
It was noted earlier by, I believe it was Member Willett, Representative Hamilton had approached me earlier this week or last week about a listening session he was intending to do. So I opted into that. Didn't want him to feel alone in his endeavors. I will be with Representative Hamilton at the auditorium at the Nevins Library on December 3rd from 6:30 to 8. His intention is to have a listening session. Seems to be the feedback from parents as they want to be heard, and this will give them an outlet. I know he is making the ask and in communication with the union that is not a place for contract demonstrations. This is an opportunity for parents, and while he respects and would encourage us to get these resolved as quick as possible, that is not the forum. But I do want to make sure that everyone is aware, and I mean, if two of you would like to attend, you are more than welcome. But other than that, we're gonna have a quorum issue. But it will be. No, you don't want to come? Oh, wow, I'm hurt a little bit. It's okay. And we will. We will be there, and you will see some circulation. His office prepared a flyer that is circulating, and hopefully it'll be a night of positive conversation. Thank you.
Any other business? Member Donovan?
I would be remiss, I'm afraid something that we've been talking about since the start, since I joined, will be overlooked with everything going on. I hope everyone here looks at the newsletters that are posted every week by our principals. We had asked, had a directive, it's one of our goals, well, superintendent's goal, to include parents more in our schools, to bring them into the schools. I have seen repeated, just perfectly worded invitations for parents to get involved on a daily basis in our grammars. And I'd like to commend Ms. Peretti. I spoke with her briefly today. It appears she has led that cause with the promotion. She was telling me today they have a wonderful response, and they actually have parents helping greet the kids in the morning, which if you're a staff member, you know, all the extra hands help. So I don't want these kind of things that we've asked for and the response of our parents to be lost as we deal with sometimes pretty uncomfortable conversations. So I'd like to, I just want to make sure we all hear that. Okay? That's it. Thanks.
Member Willett?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I also want to echo my fellow member. I want to apologize because I didn't comment at a prior meeting. A massive improvement of the newsletter that circulated. My kids go to Methuen High School. Very pleased with that versus the previous vehicle. It's like a night and day comparison. So I don't know if it's, I guess it's widespread, district-wide. Very pleased with that.
It's a new product.
Yeah, I'm happy with that. The talking points and the messages that we're receiving, you know, again, I'm very pleased with that. So I wanted to, you know, sometimes it's like negative, and that's fine. But the positive aspect of that was a night and day comparison in the newsletter. Thank you.
Any other business from the committee? If not, we're going to move on to executive session. So at this point, I need a motion and a second to adjourn this business session of November 12th, 2024, and go into executive session.
So moved.
Second.
Motion is from Member Shabilia. The second is from Member Donovan, I believe. Before we enter discussion, I will just read the following. Pursuant to Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 30A, Section 21A3, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining or litigation if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigation position of the public body, and the chair so declares Unit A, Unit C. I'll make that declaration now. Pursuant to Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 30A, Section 21A4, to discuss the deployment of security personnel or devices or strategies with respect thereto. Those are the purposes for which we will enter executive session. We will not reconvene into the open session at the conclusion of the executive session. So at this point, I will ask the recorder to take a roll call vote on entering executive session.
Member DiZoglio?
Yes.
Member Donovan?
Yes.
Member Keegan?
Yes.
Member Maxwell? Member Shabilia?
Yes.
Member Willett?
Yes.
Mayor Beauregard?
Yes.
Unanimous.
So at this point, we will enter into executive session. The time is 8:46 p.m., and we will not, as I mentioned, reconvene into open session. So the open portion of our meeting is now adjourned, and we will enter executive session. Thank you.
Good night, Methuen.